At Starbound, we tell stories the human way, not with artificial voices or AI slop. In the end, what's HFY without humanity? My name's Carol. Let's begin. The air in the Gristle Dome smelled of old grease, spilled synthale, and the sharp scent of failing electronics. Nadine Keene ranked the smell as the worst she'd ever encountered, which says something considering she'd once covered the controlled bursting of a week-old Leviathan carcass on Cressida's maw. She kept her expression neutral, tapping a pen against her datapad to tune out the overwhelming tackiness. Gristle Station, a pockmarked asteroid hollowed out as a third-rate shipping hub and first-rate dive bar, hosted a regional qualifier for the Galactic Griddle Circuit. To Nadine, the competition resembled souped-up lawnmower racing before the Grand Prix. The crowd, a motley assortment of asteroid miners and cargo haulers, roared with a sound fit for a bar fight or a sudden depressurization. On the stage, under hollow banners advertising everything from digestive aids to personal grav shielding, sweat-drenched a grell named Boro. Boro had the build of a cargo container and a jaw that could pulverize asteroids. A single, pitted lump the color of rust sat before him. "And Boro the Grinder is on his final meteor nugget," bellowed the announcer, a local with a voice that sounded like rocks in a tumbler. "He's battled it for 19 minutes by the station chronometer, folks. Can he demolish this last bastion of mineralized protein?" Nadine suppressed a yawn. Her editor at Cosmo Galactic Feed pitched this as a charming slice of fringe culture. The scene was a depressing sliver of indigestion. The meteor nuggets, a local delicacy, were dense chunks of a genetically engineered gallination analog beast raised in high gravity. Their muscle tissue resembled a geological stratum. Competitors eroded the nuggets more than ate them. Boro wrapped his considerable mouth around the nugget, his face turning a shade of puce that matched the Gristle Station logo. His jaw muscles bulged, straining against his thick hide. He strained, a low groan rumbling from his chest, but the nugget resisted him. "The nugget holds strong!" the announcer wailed. "Gristle's finest has met his match! Does anyone else have the grit, the gums, the audacity to face the nugget?" Beside Nadine, another journalist named Renner, whose beat covered industrial lubricant procurement, nudged her. "Go on, Keene. You could do it." Nadine shot him a dry look. "And why would I do that?" "Because you've been staring at a blank datapad for an hour," Renner said, gesturing to her empty device. "And because you keep fiddling with that metal pen cap. You look hungry." The nervous habit followed her from childhood, twisting things, tapping them against her teeth. She stopped, tucking the pen away. "I am hungry. For a story. This is a dead end." "Make it one," he dared, smirking. "Local reporter shows up local champ. That's a story." Nadine's life was a series of incidents stemming from her jaw. The nickname Paperclip, earned in grade school after she nervously bit a metal one clean in half during a pop quiz. The dentist who retired early after she fractured his favorite chromium probe. The boyfriend who yelped in terror when she accidentally crunched through an olive pit and the ceramic bowl holding it. She'd learned to control this bizarre, embarrassing anomaly. But Renner was right. Boredom gnawed at her, and the smell of fried batter made her stomach rumble. The nuggets looked awful, but they were food. "Fine," she sighed, standing up. "But you're buying dinner if I chip a tooth." "If you chip a tooth on that thing, Keene, I'll buy you a new set made of diamond." She flashed her press pass at a bewildered official, who shrugged and waved her onto the stage. The lights were hot. The crowd's roar pressed in on her. Boro the Grinder slumped in his chair, panting. He gave her a weary, confused look. Nadine sat in the empty contestant chair opposite him. A fresh meteor nugget sat on a plate before her. It looked like a small, sad asteroid. A medical attendant tried to strap a biometric sensor to her wrist. "Save yourself the trouble," Nadine said. "This will be quick." She picked up the nugget, heavier than it looked. The nugget had the texture of rough stone. She brought it to her mouth, the crowd's noise fading to a dull hum. For a moment, she hesitated. This was foolish, calling attention to the one thing she always tried to conceal. Then she remembered her editor's last message. "We need something with a bit more bite, Nadine." "Fine. You want a story with teeth? Here they are." She popped the nugget into her mouth and bit down. A sharp crack echoed through the arena sound system. A clean break. The crowd's roar died. The announcer fell silent mid-syllable. Boro the grinder's jaw, hanging open in exhaustion, snapped shut. Nadine chewed. The nugget had the flavor and texture of salty gravel. She swallowed, then picked up another from the bowl in the table's center. Snap. She ate that one too. Then a third. Crunch. Bland, but filling. The bite force meter attached to her chair, which the attendant had apparently connected anyway, flickered. Its needle slammed against the maximum reading, held there for a second before the device popped. A curl of blue smoke wafted from its casing and went dark with a pathetic fizz. A single gasp cut through the stillness before the gristle dome erupted. The roar was a deafening wave of shock. Before she wiped her mouth, a swarm of beings descended on the stage. League officials in garish blazers, talent scouts with dilating pupils, and a short, stout Karelian whose scales shimmered with an oil-slick rainbow under the lights. A crest of brilliant violet feathers flared from his head as he gestured with a grand sweep. He cut through the chaos and stopped before her. He took her hand, turning it over as if examining a rare artifact. "Magnificent!" he boomed, his voice a rich, theatrical baritone that cut through the noise. "The jaw's line, the understated power, the narrative of that crunch." He released her hand and produced a sequined business card from a fold in his cape of gossamer-thin solar sail that rippled with captured light. "Bartholomew Sizzlewrench III, formerly a grill duelist, now a sculptor of legends. My dear, I have just found my masterpiece." Nadine stared at him, then at the card, then at the sputtering bite force meter. All she wanted was to go back to her terminal and file a story. She had accidentally become one instead. The cantina at Gristle Station hummed with flickering neon and smelled of sticky residue from 1,000 spilled drinks. Nadine found a booth in the corner, nursing a glass of synthetic ale and processing the last hour. Her datapad buzzed with messages, mostly from Renner, who alternated between gleeful gloating and demands for an exclusive interview. "There you are, my little demolition expert!" Bartholomew Sizzlewrench slid into the booth opposite her, his scales scattering the dim light in a wash of color. He placed a bubbling, smoking cocktail on the table. "A celebratory libation. I call it the Sizzlewrench Surprise. The surprise is, it's mostly ethanol." Nadine gestured to her ale. "I'll stick with this. And I'm a writer, plain and simple." "Nonsense!" he declared, taking a theatrical sip. "You are a prodigy, a natural talent of the highest caliber. That performance was more than eating, darling. That was a statement, a percussive poem written with enamel and force." "Boredom drove me to do it," Nadine said. "I write about things. I prefer observing to doing." "But you must!" Bartholomew leaned forward and dropped his voice to a conspiratorial whisper that still carried to the next booth. The galactic griddle circuit awaits. The fame, the glory, the art of competitive consumption elevated to its highest form with my guidance. You will be more than a contender. You will be a sensation. Nadine sighed. Look, Mr. Sizzlewrench. Bartholomew, please. Bartholomew, I appreciate the enthusiasm, but you're missing the point. This, she tapped her jaw, is a flaw I've learned to manage. I spent my childhood with constant reminders to chew with caution. I've broken plates, cutlery, a shocking number of dental instruments. They called me paperclip in school because I bit one in half on a dare. It's a freak show. A freak show? My dear, that is the main event, he countered. We will rebrand you. Forget paperclip. We need something with gravitas. The jaw of justice. The molar marauder. Please stop. Nadine the Crusher Keen. Nadine rubbed her temples. I'm a journalist. I need a certain professional distance. Cracking mineralized meat chunks on stage for a cheering crowd projects an image that undermines my impartiality. He was about to launch into another grand proclamation when a calm voice cut him off. Perhaps I can provide a more empirical perspective. A man stood by their table. Athletically built, he stood with a focused stillness. He held a hololith projector in one hand. His gaze on Nadine held an analyst intensity, a stark contrast to Bartholomew's theatrical flair. Bartholomew announced with a flourish, The brilliant Soren Valen. I just hired him. Biomechanist, nutritionist, and the scientific soul to my artistic fire. Soren, my dear, meet our diamond in the rough. Soren gave Nadine a small, polite nod. Nadine Keen, I saw your performance. Your performance was remarkable. He activated the projector. A shimmering 3D image of a human skull materialized above the table, rotating. Diagrams and flickering data streams overlaid it. Soren gestured to the image. A standard human skull? He swiped a finger, and the rendering changed subtly, the jawbone thickening, the muscles around it highlighted in glowing red. And this is a scan I took of you from the arena's medical sensors before you, demolished them. Nadine stared at her own anatomical rendering, a hot flush rising up her neck. Your masseter muscles have a myostatin-inhibited density I've only ever seen in grav sled pullers, Soren explained, pointing to a glowing bundle of fibers. The laminated structure of your enamel is exceptionally dense, more akin to industrial diamond plating than organic tissue. Your entire jaw is a marvel of biomechanics. It's a gift. A gift that usually ends with me breaking the spoon when I eat soup, Nadine muttered. Your bite force peaked at over 9,000 psi before the sensor failed. Soren continued, ignoring her. The Industrial Crusher Claw 5000, the machine they use to test alloys, maxes out at 8,000. You could have punctured the plate and taken a chunk from the tabletop. A familiar flush of embarrassment heated Nadine's cheeks, but an unfamiliar thrum of pride chased it away. The cold, hard data made her strength more real than any anecdote. He's fascinating, yes? Bartholomew beamed. Now, about your contract. My options are open. I'll pass on a contract for now, Nadine said. I have a job. A job writing puff pieces about asteroid mining? Bartholomew scoffed. Destiny calls, my dear. It's ringing right off the hook. It's a good job. I'm building a portfolio. Eventually, I want a syndicated column. A real one. Bartholomew and Soren exchanged a look. The flamboyant Corellian's expression softened, a hint of shrewdness replacing the drama. A syndicated column, you say? With a major network? That's the dream, Nadine admitted. Well, he said, leaning back and steepling his clawed fingers. What if I told you the grand prize for winning the Galactic Griddle Championship is more than a mountain of credits? He paused for effect. It also includes a 1-year guaranteed columnist contract with the official GGC media network. Front page placement. Your face, your words, broadcast to 200 billion sentient beings. Nadine froze. The GGC media empire was the biggest in the galaxy. A column with them was a leap past the front door and into the boardroom. The kind of career jump she expected would take another decade of grinding away on backwater assignments. There's a catch, she said, her reporter's instinct kicking in. Of course there's a catch, darling. Bartholomew grinned. You have to win the whole damn thing. Nadine looked from Bartholomew's hopeful, glittering eyes to Soren's calm, analytical gaze. She looked at her own skull's holographic image, a quote, marvel of biometrics. The path to her dream job always seemed like a long, slow climb. Now, a different path appeared. A loud, weird, and potentially humiliating road paved with shattered foodstuffs. She picked up the sizzle wrench surprise. All right, she said, taking a sip. It tasted of rocket fuel and something acrid that burned all the way down. A trial run. But if I wear a cape, the deal is off. Bartholomew clapped his hands together, his feathers quivering and catching the light. Excellent. We'll start with a stylish, understated shawl and work our way up. Training began the next day, and Nadine realized she had joined a circus run by a philosopher king and a scientist. Bartholomew's lessons were exercises in absurdity. No, darling, he'd cry, as Nadine worked through a plate of petrified Yithian sea cucumbers. You are doing more than eating. You're telling a story. The plate is your stage, the food your scene partner. The bite is the climax. You must have passion, drama. Present the cucumber. Admire its form. Let the audience feel the anticipation. Then, and only then, do you bring the hammer down. Nadine held the leathery sea cucumber aloft like a Shakespearean actor contemplating a skull, feeling ridiculous. But she did it. She postured. She developed a flourish before each bite that involved a dramatic pause and a slight narrowing of her eyes, which, to her surprise, the training cameras loved. Soren's regimen was a world of cold, hard metrics and controlled exertion. He put Nadine through targeted isometric exercises, clenching her jaw against calibrated resistance pads until her muscles burned. He ran Nadine through metabolic conditioning drills, endless hours on treadmills and gravity simulators to build the stamina for an eating event that could last hours. Competitive eating demands more than strength alone, Soren explained, his voice a calm counterpoint to Nadine's thumping heart. It's about endurance, hydration, and managing lactic acid buildup in the masseter muscles. Your jaw is a high-performance engine. We have to maintain it. Soren had her testing her bite on a dizzying array of materials, from crystallized sugars with a tensile strength of steel to fibrous alien fungi like bundled cable. Soren's guidance taught Nadine to use her jaw like a toolkit. She learned to pierce with her incisors, tear with her canines, and apply the full force of her molars. One afternoon, Soren called her over to a medical imaging console. He displayed Nadine's 3D jaw scan again, zooming in on a single tooth. Look here, Soren said. tracing fine, layered lines within the enamel. This laminated structure gives you your strength. It distributes pressure with great efficiency. It's beautiful. A reverence in his voice made Nadine look at the image, then at herself, in a new light. For the first time, she associated beautiful with her jaw. Then Soren's expression grew serious. He pulled up another scan, a simulation showing extreme stress fractures spiderwebbing through the bone and enamel. This system is incredibly strong, but it has limits. The nerve clusters at the root are complex. If you suffer a catastrophic failure, biting something beyond your absolute limit, the resulting shock could cause permanent nerve damage. We're talking chronic pain, loss of motor control. The damage is irreversible. Repairing nerve networks on that scale is beyond current regeneration tech. It's a risk we have to manage. The image was sobering. For the first time, Nadine's stomach tightened. The competition had real stakes. Later that week, Soren pulled up a newsfeed on their training facility's main screen. A sleek, polished Pythian appeared, his body encased in a smooth, black plating that flowed with his movements. He moved his head on a neck that coiled and uncoiled, the motion as fluid as spilled mercury. A Chiron identified him as Sir Crispington Quarax, CEO of Bite Right Brands. Competitor safety is, and always will be, our paramount concern. Quarax purred, his voice a smooth, synthesized baritone. The Galactic Griddle Circuit, thanks to Bite Right Brand's support, is the safest competitive eating league in the known universe. Our patented safety crumb food products and our extensive line of digestive aids ensure every competitor can perform at their peak without risk of choking or dental injury. We believe in a level playing field where technology determines the champion, creating an authentic test of skill. Soren paused the feed. Quarax's polished, expressionless face froze on the screen. That, he said, is a threat. Bartholomew, rehearsing a dramatic entrance in the corner, strode over. He's a corporate ghoul, my dear. A purveyor of processed pap. He sells weakness and calls it safety. He bases his entire business model on the idea that natural eating is dangerous. Soren elaborated. He sells prosthetic massacators, nutrient supplements, foods engineered to disintegrate if you look at them too hard. You, he looked at Nadine, are a living, breathing, nugget-crushing refutation of his entire philosophy. You're bad for business. He'll come after us, Bartholomew said, his posture losing its usual flourish. He will stop a talent like yours from disrupting his balanced market. His crest of feathers drooped. He'll find a way to stop you. Nadine looked at the frozen image of Quarax, then at her two eccentric mentors. A few weeks ago, she was a bored journalist covering a local spectacle. Now, she had a team, a purpose, and a powerful enemy. A sharp, unexpected thrill cut through her. Vesper's arena was a testament to corporate excess. A vast, glittering bowl suspended between two orbital rings. It dwarfed the Gristle Dome. Hollow ads for Bite Right brands were everywhere, their logo a reassuringly bland circle. Nadine, standing in the wings, felt a tremor run through her hands. This was the real deal. Breathe deep, darling, Bartholomew said, adjusting the collar on her sleek competition uniform. Remember the narrative. You are the storm. The food is the unsuspecting village. Right, Nadine said. The hungry, hungry storm. From the commentator's booth high above, two commentators' voices echoed through the stadium. Welcome back to the Vesper Invitational, folks! I'm Lady Hushpuppy, and with me is the good doctor of digestion, the master of mastication, Dr. Munch. Lady Hushpuppy, A small, furry Zooble who floated in a plush repulsor chair had a voice that fizzed with excitement. And we have a fascinating rookie on the docket today, Doctor. A human Nadine Paperclip Keen. They're calling her the human anomaly after she shattered the bite force record and the machine itself. A qualifier. Indeed, hush puppy, came the dry, academic monotone of Dr. Munch, a tall, gaunt Griselda with several pairs of spectacles perched on his long beak. Her preliminary scans are biomechanically fascinating. A truly anomalous combination of jaw musculature and enamel with exceptional density. The question remains whether she can apply that brute force to a dish requiring finesse. The announcer revealed the challenge. Gelastic scaffolds. Intricate, wobbling towers of translucent gelatin, crisscrossed with delicate spun sugar beams. The goal was to consume the entire structure while keeping it standing, a feat requiring focus and a delicate touch. Her main opponent, Grisick, was an agathine-beaked avianoid. He stood at his station, his beak striking and removing sugar beams one by one from the structure. Nadine looked at her own wobbling tower. Bartholomew's lesson on showmanship warred with Soren's cold logic. The narrative, one part of her mind screamed. Target the load-bearing points, screamed the other. Soren spoke over her earpiece. Forget the delicate parts, Nadine. That's Grisick's game. You'll lose if you play it. Look at the base. It's a solid, compressed block of gel. He'll have to peck at that for minutes. You have an advantage. Nadine took a breath. She presented the scaffold, just as Bartholomew taught her, giving it a dramatic, contemplative look. The crowd murmured. Then she leaned down and opened her mouth wide. She bypassed the delicate top and bit directly into the thick, solid base. Her teeth sank into the dense gel, shearing through it with a wet, tearing sound. She clamped down, and with a single, powerful wrench of her head, ripped the structure's entire base clean off. The scaffold, its foundation gone, shivered for a moment, then collapsed into a heap of glittering, edible rubble. My word, Dr. Munch exclaimed from the commentary booth. She has demolished the structural integrity, a complete violation of this event's artistic spirit. But look at her go, squealed Lady Hushpuppy. She's shoveling it in. Grisick is still pecking away at his tower, but Keen has turned hers into a buffet. Her method was a messy, high-speed affair. Nadine finished her pile of debris a full minute before Grisick, who was still delicately plucking pieces from his pristine tower. He stared at her, his beak half open in avian disgust. Backstage, Bartholomew was ecstatic, wrapping her in a hug that smelled faintly of scorched sugar and exotic spices. The lingering aroma of his grill dueling days. Soren gave her a rare, wide smile, holding up a data pad showing her consumption per second stats. A new league record for gelatinous foodstuffs. Victory sent a thrill through Nadine. High above, in an acoustically sealed, climate-controlled skybox, Sir Crispington Quarax watched a replay of Nadine's victory. He listened to Dr. Munch's commentary, a small frown on his smooth, Pythian face. Brutally violates the event's artistic spirit, and a biomechanical system built to crush bones, preferring it over savoring confection. Korax turned to an aide who stood stiffly behind him. His voice was a low, pleasant purr, with an edge of cold carbon. She makes my products look irrelevant. She makes skill look obsolete. Find me a rule that she breaks. He paused, his neck coiling to fix his gaze on the aide. Or find one we can reinterpret to make her break it. The summons arrived on a polished chrome datapad, delivered by an official with a stone-like face and a Bite-Right branded uniform. The Galactic Griddle Rules Committee required her presence at a special hearing. The message stated only the time and place. It's a trap, Bartholomew declared, pacing their hotel suite. A dastardly, underhanded bit of corporate chicanery. Let's avoid jumping to conclusions, Soren said, though he furrowed his brow as he scanned the official summons. It says Sir Crispington Corax will be in attendance as a concerned sponsor. That's a bad sign. The hearing room was cold and sterile. A crescent-shaped table of officials with downturned mouths and hard eyes faced a single chair for Nadine. Sir Crispington Corax sat to one side with his legal team, his posture one of calm authority. He gave Nadine a nod that was almost friendly, but his eyes were flat and depthless, like a sheet of still black water. The committee head, a ponderous creature with multiple chins, cleared his throats. Miss Keene, our primary sponsor has brought a matter of competitive integrity to our attention, and we are here to discuss it. Corax's lead counsel, a sharp-featured Xandarian, stood. The committee is familiar with Article 3, Section 5 of the Galactic Sporting Accords, concerning biological weapons and augmented physiology. The clause bars soldiers with integrated combat hardware or genetic combat modifications from competing in civilian events. Of course, the chairman grumbled. But Miss Keene is a human, unaugmented. Is she? The lawyer asked. She gestured, and a hollow screen lit up, showing a diagram of human dentition. Observe. Incisors for tearing, canines for piercing, premolars for shearing, and molars for crushing. This complex system differs from that of an herbivore or a specialist carnivore. It is multi-tool, a biological toolkit installed at birth, analogous to military hardware in its versatility and destructive potential. Bartholomew, seated behind Nadine, made a sputtering noise. The lawyer continued, her voice dripping with theatrical concern. Bite-Right Brands has invested trillions of credits in creating a safe, controlled environment for competitors, an environment where our products can ensure a level playing field. But Miss Keene's natural advantages circumvent these safety measures. Her biology represents a threat to the sport's core principles. She then played a clip from the Vesper Invitational broadcast. Dr. Munch's voice, detached and clinical, filled the room. A biomechanical system built to crush bones, preferring it over savoring confection. The lawyer paused the clip. Built to crush bones, she repeated, letting the words hang in the air. Dr. Munch, the league's foremost expert, describes a biological weapon, a system designed for destruction. The logic was absurd, the most twisted piece she had ever heard. But as she looked at the committee members, their expressions shifted. Their gazes kept flicking to Corax, to the Bite-Right logos subtly embossed on the room's walls, on their data pads, on the water pitchers. Their allegiance was clear. The committee deliberated for less than 5 minutes. The chairman cleared his multiple throats and looked at Nadine, his gaze fixed on the wall behind her. After reviewing the evidence and the compelling arguments presented, he intoned, and with the safety of all competitors as our highest priority, this committee has reached a unanimous verdict. He paused, shuffling his papers. Effective immediately under Article 3, Section 5, the unique dental structure of omnivorous humans, as exemplified by competitor Nadine Keene, we hereby classify as a Tier 4 biological weapon. The words hit Nadine, stealing the air from her lungs. She stared, her expression slackening, her focus lost as the room tilted around her. A weapon. They had declared a part of her body, the thing she had always been self-conscious about, an illegal implement. A courier delivered the safety equipment the next morning. The mouthguard was a massive, comically oversized block of dull gray polymer, designed to fit over her teeth and blunt any bite into a mushy, ineffective press. Thick and cumbersome and humiliating, the device made chewing feel like painting a miniature with a deck mop. Hollow news outlets ran with the story, with sensationalist headlines. The Bone Crusher, human chewer deemed too dangerous for sport. Her image became a sensationalized caricature, spreading across the data feeds. A promising sponsorship deal she was negotiating with a beverage company evaporated overnight. Worse, whispers followed her down the training facility corridors. Other competitors, who once looked at her with awe or professional jealousy, now averted their eyes or stared hard as she passed. "Freak," one muttered. "Cheater," another whispered. She avoided the training gym. She ignored Bartholomew's calls. She sat in her room, the ridiculous mouthguard on the table, a monument to her humiliation. Bartholomew and Soren found her packing her bags. "What is the meaning of this?" Bartholomew asked, his colorful scales dull and lifeless. "I'm quitting," Nadine said, keeping her eyes on her suitcase. She threw in a shirt. I'm done. Competing like this is futile, and I refuse to be the galaxy's laughingstock." "Nadine, this is what he wants," Soren said. "He wants you to give up." "Well, he gets his wish," Nadine snapped. "Congratulations to Sir Crispington Corax. He wins. I'm going back to writing about industrial lubricants. It's less glamorous, but at least there my incisors are just teeth." "So, that's it?" Bartholomew asked, his shoulders slumping. "The dream dies? The legend ends before it even begins?" "The legend requires an audience," Nadine stated. "I'm the only one left, and I've had enough. This was a mistake." She zipped her suitcase shut with a final angry tug and pushed past them towards the door. "Wait." Soren's command stopped her in the hallway. Nadine paused, her back to them. "Corax's actions extend beyond you," Soren stated. He stepped in front of Nadine, holding up a hololith projector. A series of news alerts shimmered in the air. "He targeted more than just you. He used your case to launch a league-wide safety-first initiative. It happened the same day as your hearing." She swiped through the images. The League now required Falto, a gelatinous, osmosis-based eater, to compete in dehydrated food events, a crippling disadvantage. Grisick, the avianoid champion, had to participate in a challenge involving perma-taffy, a sticky confection engineered by Bite-Right that gummed up his beak, neutralizing his pecking advantage. New, arbitrary rules systematically handicapped dozens of other competitors with unique biological gifts. "His goal is more than your resignation," Soren said, his gaze intense. "He's purging the League of everyone whose biology makes his products irrelevant. Everyone who represents natural talent. He's forcing them to quit too. Are you going to let him?" Nadine stared at the images of other struggling competitors. A cold fury pushed aside her self-pity. This involved more than just her. Bartholomew came to stand beside Soren. His flamboyant posture had returned, but his eyes were serious. "My approach was flawed, my dear," he said. "My approach was all about spectacle, about you as a solo performer, a star. But this is about something more." He tapped her shoulder. "They took your weapon. Now you must become a tool." Nadine looked at him, confused. "What does that even mean?" "He means," Soren interjected, "they hindered your primary function, consumption. Yet your secondary function, demolition, remains. The mouthguard makes it difficult for you to chew and swallow efficiently. It still allows you to bite down." An idea sparked in Nadine's mind, faint and then bright. She looked at the images of Grisick struggling with the taffy, or a falto trying to absorb a dry cracker. She could still tear, still break things down. For others. The next event was a doubles relay, with partners assigned by a randomizer moments before the start. The system paired Nadine with Grisick. He stalked to their station, his beak clicking in irritation. He fixed his stare on her, then on her cumbersome mouthguard. "Welcome, fans, to the Tandem Takedown," Lady Hushpuppy chirped from the booth. "And what a pairing we have here! The focus pack of Grisick and, well, the recently handicapped Nadine Keene. This could be a disaster, Doctor."
"Statistically, yes," Dr. Munch agreed. "Their consumption styles are diametrically opposed. It's like pairing a calligrapher with a jackhammer."
They unveiled the food. Petrified sunfruit. Large, perfectly round spheres, with a shell as hard and smooth as polished ceramic. Inside, according to the announcer, was a soft, pulp-like center. The challenge was to crack the shell and consume the interior. The starting signal blared. Grisick went first. He pecked at the sunfruit, his sharp beak striking the shell with a series of sharp tinks. The surface was too round, too smooth. His beak kept slipping off, leaving only faint scratches. His pecks grew faster, more frantic. Their team fell behind. The crowd grew restless. At last, Nadine's turn came. Grisick stepped back, his glare challenging her. "Let's see what you can do, weapon mouth." Her goal was to crack the fruit for Grisick to eat. She braced it against the competition table's reinforced edge. She took a deep breath, centered herself, and bit down on the sphere's top. The huge polymer guard muffled the bite, but it transferred the impact. The pressure was immense. A strain shot through her jaw, but she held it, pouring all her strength into that single point of contact. A hairline fracture appeared in the ceramic-like shell. Then another. With a final, sharp crack, the shell split open, revealing the soft fruit within. She slid the fractured fruit, uneaten, over to Grisick's side of the table. He stared at it, then at her. After a second's hesitation, his beak darted down, swiftly scooping out the pulpy interior. Nadine cracked a fruit, slid it over. Grisick consumed it. Crack, peck. Their movements became a two-part machine. "What is this?" Lady Hushpuppy cried. "Keene is preparing the food for Grisick instead of eating."
"A paradigm shift in collaborative consumption," Dr. Munch declared, a rare note of excitement in his monotone. "She has turned her handicap into a supporting role. She is the chisel where she once was the jackhammer. She is setting up the work for the artist. A fascinating development in interspecies gastronomic strategy."
They moved up the leaderboard. Other teams, struggling to open the tough shells, watched helplessly as Nadine and Grisick established their rhythm. They placed third, a result that seemed out of reach just minutes earlier. As they left the stage, Grisick stopped and gave Nadine a short, sharp nod. In his skybox, Sir Crispington Quarax gripped his chair's armrest. He scraped his polished Fithian fingers against the metal, leaving faint white lines. His personal comlinks feed was open.
"She's adapting," he hissed. "She's building a network. I announce another rule change for the carousel. Now. No simultaneous assistance in the pods. One competitor in, one out. Isolate her."
The rule changes had an unintended effect. They galvanized the opposition. A few days after the tandem takedown, Grisick appeared at Nadine's training facility. He came with others. Faltho the Osmian, a xylophage named Rootnar Ryle, whose jaws the League now deemed an unfair sawing risk, and a handful of other eaters whose natural abilities the Safety First initiative had targeted. "The Fithian changes the rules to suit his products," Grisick stated, his voice a series of sharp, deliberate clicks. "This is dishonorable competition."
"He's rigging the game," Rill added, his own grinding jaws clicking in agitation. And I'm a journalist, Nadine said, a cold fire in her eyes. There's always a way to get the truth out. They all looked to Nadine. So, we changed the game, she said. Their shared training sessions became a hub of defiant innovation. Soren, in his element, became the de facto head of strategy. He analyzed every new rule, every handicapped competitor's biology, and devised countermeasures. He created nutritional plans and exercise regimens for a dozen different species, a revolutionary feat of interspecies biology. Bartholomew assumed the role of their choreographer. "We are past a series of solo performances," he would declare, sweeping his cape dramatically. "We now present a ballet of bites, a symphony of swallows. Each of you has a part to play in the grand narrative." He designed team choreography for the relay events, mapping out movements and transitions with marks on the floor, timing each handoff to the 10th of a second. They drew attention. A rival team, unfettered by the new rules, began observing their sessions. One afternoon, after Nadine and Grisick perfected a particularly complex crack and peck maneuver on a tough, vitrified gourd, the rival team's captain, a stoic kestrel, gave Grisick a short, sharp nod of professional respect. They became the Outsiders Coalition, as the media dubbed them, a motley crew of freaks and specialists, united against a common enemy. One evening, amidst the gym's focused intensity, Soren was fitting Nadine with a new mouthguard. The custom design, 3D printed from a lighter, more ergonomic polymer based on Soren's own scans, was still a handicap, but a slightly less ridiculous one. As he adjusted the fit, Soren's hands framed Nadine's face. His touch was gentle, professional, but lingered for a moment longer than necessary. Nadine met his gaze. The gym's background noise seemed to fade. "Thank you," Nadine said, "for all this, for believing in me when I had lost faith in myself." Soren's calm facade cracked into a small, genuine smile. "My interest was initially scientific," he admitted, his gaze locked on Nadine's. "The data has become more complex." In that moment, Bartholomew directed a gelatinous creature through a pirouette in the corner. For the first time, she was rooted, part of this bizarre, wonderful whole. They were a team, and together they would go to the championship. The Celestial Carousel was more than an arena. It was a statement of wealth and power. A massive, rotating ring station habitat held the championship finals. Its 5 pods simulated different gravities and environments. Bite-Right Brands had funded the entire construction of the Galactic Griddle Circuit's crown jewel. "Welcome, ladies, gentlemen, and assorted sentient life forms, to the grandest stage in gastronomy!" Lady Hushpuppy's voice boomed across the station. "The Galactic Griddle Championship Final! The culmination of a season of turmoil, controversy, and incredible competitive eating!" "Indeed," Dr. Munch added. "Tonight we see the Outsiders Coalition, led by the infamous Nadine Keene, face off against Korak's corporate-sponsored team, the Bite-Right Champions, a team of generalists who rely heavily on Bite-Right eating aids. A classic clash of philosophies." As the coalition entered the central hub, the place's scale took Nadine's breath away. The crowd glittered and roared, a galaxy of spectators. The massive hollow screens lit up, showing Sir Crispington Korak's serene, polished face. "Greetings, competitors and fans," he purred. "In the interest of ensuring the ultimate test of skill and safety, I am invoking the Grand Commissioner's discretionary clause for a last-minute integrity challenge. Each of the 5 stages will now feature a new experimental product from Bite-Right's extreme safety line." A collective groan went through the Outsiders Coalition. We designed these dishes for efficient consumption only with our proprietary tools, which we will provide. Korax continued with a smug smile. This will ensure the true champion is the one with the best strategy and skill, leveling the playing field against innate biological quirks. The team deflated. They exchanged furious, despairing looks. This was it. The final insurmountable obstacle. Korax had legislated them out of the competition. Nadine stepped into their huddle center. She hardened her expression. "He's scared," she said, her voice low but clear. "He's pulling this because he's scared of us." She looked around at each teammate. "He says the new food requires his tools. Fine. He overlooked something. The overall competition is still a relay. The new rule prevents two of us from working at once inside the pods, but it has to allow for a handoff. We'll prepare the dish as our final action before the handoff." They looked at her, their confused expressions clearing, replaced by hope. "We have a system," Nadine said, her voice rising with confidence. "Soren gave us the science. Bartholomew gave us the choreography. We know how to work together. He built a test of his products. We're going to turn it into a test of our team." A fresh determination settled on their strange and varied faces. They were ready. The first pod hissed open, revealing a zero-gravity chamber. "And we begin with stage 1, Null G Soufflé," Lady Hushpuppy announced. "A delicate, quivering orb of aerated protein that floats in midair. Competitors must consume it before its sonic containment field pops." A tough, flexible membrane contained the Coalition's dish, a new, bite-right safety feature. Thalo, their osmosis-based eater, was up first. He propelled himself towards a bubble, but his absorptive pseudopods slid off the resilient surface. He failed to breach it. Nadine, her boots magnetized to the chamber wall, pushed off. She shot across the pod, intercepting a soufflé sphere. She bit into the membrane. Her teeth, even with the guard, tore a jagged hole in the material. The soufflé inside bloomed out, a cloud of edible vapor. "Keen with the assist!" Hushpuppy screamed. "She's a can opener! A human can opener!" Thalo enveloped the cloud, absorbing it instantly. Nadine moved to the next sphere, tearing it open. The process was messy and chaotic, but it worked. The Coalition finished the stage in second place, just behind the bite-right champions, whose specialized sonic forks popped the bubbles with contemptuous ease. The second pod was the opposite, a high-gravity chamber, cranked up to a bone-creaking 2G. "Stage 2, the carbide cracker," Dr. Munch explained. "A flat, incredibly dense wafer of compressed grain dust. It requires immense grinding pressure to break it down." Rootnar Rill was their specialist for this, but the heavy gravity hampered his ability to move his powerful jaws. He struggled, making slow progress. Nadine felt the weight pressing down on her, each movement an effort. She grabbed a handful of crackers. Her muscles protested, yet she braced herself and snapped them, one by one, into smaller, more manageable shards for Rill. A sharp, lancing pain shot through her jaw. Soren spoke over her comm, his voice taut with concern. "Nadine, biometrics show a stress indicator in your jawbone. You're at the structural limit. Be careful." "Copy," Nadine grunted, snapping another cracker. Rill, energized by the smaller pieces, consumed them at a rapid pace. They completed the stage and took the lead. As she moved to the next airlock, Nadine felt a deep, throbbing ache in her jaw. She pushed the pain aside. The third pod was a nightmare of disorienting, centrifugally induced side gravity. The challenge was photon noodles, strands of solidified light they had to catch and consume in mid-air. This stage required agility, and Korax's team had an advantage. They also had a plan. As the coalition's fastest member, a sylph whose light frame allowed for controlled gliding, was about to snatch a noodle, a bite-right champion unleashed a blast of compressed air from a hidden canister, a clear, if deniable, act of sabotage. The noodles scattered. They fell into third place. Grisick and Rill started snapping at each other, their movements becoming jerky and uncoordinated. Enough! Nadine's voice cut through their bickering. She called a timeout, a move that cost them precious seconds. Look at me. Her jaw was visibly throbbing, a slight tremor in the muscle, but her voice was steady. This is what he wants, okay? He wants us to fall apart. We are eating against more than them. We are eating against him. Remember the choreography. Remember the story. Bartholomew's lessons, which had once seemed so silly, now felt like prophecy. This was their story to write. They nodded, their argument forgotten, their focus renewed. The fourth stage. The pod was stark, minimalist. In the room's center sat a single, massive food item on a pedestal. The adamantine acorn, Dr. Munch said, his voice hushed with something like awe. A marketing stunt by Bite-Right. A single, genetically engineered nut encased in a shell of crystallized gluten with a molecular structure that is, theoretically, unbreakable by organic means. Nadine's turn came. The team was behind. The only way to catch up was to crack this acorn and let their final team member come consume it. She walked to the pedestal. She looked at the acorn. Then she reached up and pulled the mouthguard from her teeth. A klaxon blared through the pod. An automated voice declared, "Safety protocol violation. Competitor Keen disqualified." Her personal score dropped to 0. She was out of the running for any individual prize, but the team could continue if she made the food available. She tuned out the alarms, pushed past the throbbing pain in her jaw. She placed the adamantine acorn on the floor, braced it with her foot, and knelt. She opened her mouth wider than she ever had before. She thought of Korax's smug face, of her team's defiant hope, of Soren's worried eyes. She bit down. She poured every ounce of strength, every bit of her anomalous biology into that single point of pressure. For a moment, the acorn held. Then came a series of sharp reports, like snapping granite, that echoed through the chamber. The sound was inside her own head as much as in the room. A blinding, white agony erupted along her jawline. On the broadcast biometric display, red warning icons flashed, showing multiple microfractures spiderwebbing through her jawbone. In the commentary booth, Dr. Munch's voice broke. She has done it. The PSI must be astronomical." Lady Hushpuppy was silent, her microphone carrying only the hiss of an open mic. The adamantine acorn lay on the floor, split wide open. Nadine collapsed to her knees, clutching her face. She had done her job. Her teammate rushed in, consumed the contents, and they surged back into contention, neck and neck for the final stage. Medics rushed Nadine to the medbay as the final stage began. She waved off sedation, insisting on staying on the comms and watching the feed on a monitor. Soren was by her side, his face pale, his hand holding Nadine's. Bartholomew stood guard by the door, his usual flair replaced by the rigid stance of a worried father. It all came down to Grisick, their anchor, against the Bite-Right champion. The last challenge was a cruel assortment of every safety food they had ever faced. "Grisick," Nadine whispered into the comm, her voice strained. "The cracker. Snap it on the edge. Avoid grinding." The corporate team tried their compressed air trick again, but this time, the rival team, the one that had watched them train, interfered. Their competitor subtly shifted his position, blocking the blast. It was a small, quick act of sportsmanship, a middle finger to Korax's entire philosophy. It gave Grisick the opening he needed. It came down to the last bite. A single, tough, petrified sunfruit. The bite-right champion fumbled with his proprietary cracking tool. Grisick, using the technique Nadine had shown him, braced it against the table and shattered it with a single, sharp peck. He swallowed the last piece a split second before his opponent. The celestial carousel exploded with sound. The Outsiders Coalition had won. In the medbay, watching the team celebrate on the monitor, Nadine smiled, though pain tightened her mouth's corners. The doctor finished his scans and turned to her, his expression grave. The fractures are treatable, but the nerve network. The damage is extensive, permanent. Your competitive career is over, Miss Keene. Attempting that level of strain again would cause debilitating, chronic pain. News of the sabotage, combined with the raw, dramatic footage of Nadine's sacrifice, brought a firestorm of scrutiny down on Corax. The rival team testified against the bite-right champions. The killing blow came from Nadine herself. Acting on a tip from Soren about a flaw in bite-right's internal network, Nadine used her old press credentials to cultivate a source in Corax's marketing department. The data packet she forwarded to her old editor contained everything. Internal memos about the Safety First initiative, plans for the final stage sabotage, and proof of market manipulation. The story went galactic. The League's other sponsors dropped bite-right overnight. Corax's empire crumbled. Later, the team crowded into her medbay room. Grisick placed the championship trophy by her bed. Rutnar Rill looked at her, his jaws clicking.
"You taught us," he said. "The dish's rules matter less than the table's rules."
Weeks later, as she recovered, 2 offers arrived. One was from the Galactic Hollow News, offering her the columnist contract she'd dreamed of. The other was from the new, hastily formed GGC leadership, asking her to join them as a consultant and commissioner to help them reform the League. She sat at a terminal in her apartment, weighing the choices. Soren came up behind her, placing a steaming cup of tea on the desk and resting a hand on her shoulder. Nadine looked at him and smiled. She sent 2 messages, one accepting the commissioner position, the other agreeing to write for the Hollow News as a freelance contributor. She could do both. She could have it all. She opened a new file. The title of her first column came to her instantly. She typed the words, a smile touching her lips at their power, their absurdity, their truth. My teeth. The Tier 4 weapon. She was ready to tell her own story. 6 months later, the dull ache in Nadine's jaw was a constant, familiar companion, a reminder of victory's price. She stood on the floor of a small, local arena, the air filled with the smells of strange, wonderful foods. Bartholomew, wearing a subdued cape, stood beside her.
"They have spirit," he murmured, watching the young competitors.
The sign above the entrance read, "The Sizzle Wrench Keen Youth Gastronomy League." A human girl, around 10 years old, hesitated before a piece of dense, candied Martian yam. She looked at it, her own teeth seemingly an obstacle. Nadine walked over and knelt beside her. "It looks tough, doesn't it?" The girl nodded. "Strength is about more than how hard you can bite," Nadine said, lightly tapping her own jaw. "It's about knowing when and where and why. And sometimes," she smiled, "it's about knowing who you're biting for." The child took a firm, confident bite, breaking off a piece. Then she turned and offered a portion to a young avianoid beside her, Grisick's nephew, who was struggling to scoop up some slippery gelatin. He took it, and in return, used his beak to help her spear a piece of her own. Soren joined them, putting an arm around Nadine's waist. Together, they watched the next generation of competitors learn a new set of rules. They learned their own rules, of cooperation, mutual respect, and finding strength in the things that made them different, replacing Korax's engineered mediocrity. Nadine's victory was more than a trophy. She had changed the game.